This is my starter house on the Hermitcraft server, and above every other build that I've ever done, this one has had the most requests for a tutorial. This house took me over a week to get it to where I wanted it to be, so you can imagine it's going to be difficult for me to try to do a block-by-block tutorial, but I've got an idea that can help you not only learn how to build this house, but learn how to build even better houses than this in the future. So I spent a lot of time going through my thought process and how I came up with this house. And I want to try to break it down in the simplest way possible for you guys. This is so, yes, you could recreate this if you wanted to, but I'd love to see you use the method that I used to create this house to make your own houses eventually. So today we're going to go from this all the way to our finished product step by step. But before we get started on that, I want to take a quick minute to thank our sponsor. This video today is made possible because of today's sponsor, Shop Titans. What is Shop Titans? Well, I'm so glad that you asked. Design and build a thriving shop in this tycoon simulator adventure. Outfit your hero and champions with custom gear and send them out on quests to battle powerful, epic bosses. Right now, Shop Titans is out on iOS and Android, so I find it to be the perfect game to play when it's potty time. But really good news. As of today, we are the world premiere. Today, you can click the link down in the description and you can wish list Shop Titans on Steam. And the great thing about it is it's going to be cross-platform. So you're on your potty, you play, you do all that, you make all your progress. Then later, go to the PC, wash your hands first, and then you can pick up right where you left off. I'm having a lot of fun with this game, actually. It's pretty beautiful, and it's kind of fun, and it's addicting. But for our community, Shop Titans is going to give away 3 special, unique gifts. So if you're interested in that, down in the comment section below, leave your in-game name and your unique 5-digit code. Within the week, we're going to pick 3 people and give away these special items. It's going to be pretty fun. I'm excited. It's so kind of Shop Titans to help sponsor this video. Appreciate you so much. And thank you also for making an awesome game that we can play during this really weird time in our lives. Guys, down in the description below, make sure to click that link if you're interested. I think you're going to enjoy this one a lot. Okay, so like I said, we're not going to go block by block on this thing, but I want to show you guys my build process so you guys can build like this as well. The one thing that I do use that helps a lot is World Edit. If you have access to World Edit, I think it's a great tool to help you, but you can always do all this stuff by hand. So I've laid out 3 shapes here, 3 house shapes, and to me, the shape is the most important thing. If you get a good shape, then once you start to texture it and put the blocks in place, you can put a lot of different blocks as long as the shape is good. If you have a good shape, you could texture this thing in dirt and it would still look okay. So this is how I started out, and I put these dotted lines on here so you can kind of pause it and count out what the size is if you want to build this exactly. The orange wool at the bottom is going to be for our foundation blocks. Our foundation is going to be a slightly different color than the rest of the house. Most often it'd be a stone brick. The red is going to be kind of our main house color. And then obviously the light blue is our roof color. Here's going to be a little jut out area in yellow. But this small section here is 7 by 9, 7 wide by 9 deep. This main section of the house is 18 by 9, so 18 wide, 9 deep. And you can see how it kind of has a gable roof like that. And then this tower that I made is 5 by 5. And the roof on this is slightly different. If you follow this pattern here, 5, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, and then 3 on top. You do that on all sides, and you'll be able to get that. So not very difficult. If you just pause it, you can pretty much figure out how these 3 sections lay out. Once we get those 3 shapes at a spot where we like them, where we think, yeah, these could be good shapes and they'll work out nice, then kind of jam them all together. So I put these blocks down to see, so you can see how far in I push this. So that side piece right there, I pushed that into the side of the house there, and I left a little bit of, I'm leaving it poking out just a little bit there. And then the tower on the back side, I just decided to put it 3 blocks in there and have 3 blocks coming out there. So the tower just pushes in there. Again, this is a spot where World Edit would work out really nice for you, but you can just do this by hand. Just take screenshots and then use those as reference to kind of rebuild them in a place where you think it would work out well. I also changed the roof to make it a little more interesting. Here we have just a regular gable roof. So yeah, in order to add some interest, instead of just a normal gable, we did this, which is called a half hip roof, where it kind of juts back. So over here, you see, this is a gable roof. This is just regular, right? That's how the end looks. This is called a hip roof, where you have it come out, but then you have it also go back. And that's a nice way to add some interest to your roof as well. But this is a half hip. So it starts out gable like that, but then near the top, you jut it back like that, like a hip roof. So it's kind of simple, but it's a nice way to add some interest. So I did that on both sides, and also decided that where these two shapes meet is a great place for a chimney to go, where we can connect that to a kitchen or something on the interior. But once you have the shapes together like this, I start to think about the colors. What colors are we going to use? Once I'm happy, I have the shapes together, I like the new shape that we've created, start thinking about the texture and the colors that you want to use. So for the roof of this house, I decided that I wanted to trim out the edges in dark oak stairs, slabs, all that sort of stuff. The dark oak wood is a nice way to kind of add a little bit of trim to it and give it just a little bit of interest on the edges. For the main part where the shingles would be, this would even come all the way across on this edge. So any edge is going to have some dark oak stairs, slabs around that, adding some interest when you find the opportunity to. For the roof, I decided to add a little bit of a texture of dark gray concrete, or just regular gray concrete and gray wool. There's a lot of potential options that you could go with here. If you follow me on Patreon, then you know that I put up recently a gradient map for all the blocks in the game. And you can kind of find some blocks that are close and similar to each other in order to add some texture to your areas, especially in a roof where it's a lot of the same thing. It's all the same blocks. So being able to go through and replace these and kind of just randomly go gray, concrete, put some wool in, and then put some concrete in, you do that and you start to get something that looks a little bit more interesting. Okay, so now we've got the wood trim all the way around, helping kind of create some interest there, and then we've got the roof all textured. On the tower here, I did something a little different. To help ease these transitions and make it look a little bit more smooth going up, I added some walls, some cobblestone walls, although we unfortunately don't have anything dark gray like this, but cobblestone walls actually work fairly well to help ease that transition as it goes up. And then even here, I added some dark oak fences and some iron bars to kind of give some interest. So that's how I ended up texturing, oops, a piece of string there. That's how I ended up texturing the roof. Now, from this point, the style of this house is going to be a Tudor style. That's kind of what we went for. And in a Tudor style, usually on the bottom you have more of a flat stone look, and then on the top layer you have it framed out in logs. Now this is a point where it's probably good to start thinking about what colors you want to use for the house. For mine, I went with white concrete and diorite, which we'll get to later, to kind of fill in the walls and stuff. But you want to think about that. Maybe if you want to go with terracotta and granite, then maybe you use a lighter log to kind of trim it out. But the way we trim this is we just take this top layer and we go on the edges. So here in this corner, we'll fill that in and then come straight over, because you see this part is a little bit bigger, right? So we'll fill these in with logs like so. And this is just the dark oak stripped log wood. And then here, I always like to, when the roof kind of comes in like this, I like to put a little frame there as well. Now you have to kind of go through and count out. Ideally, you're in a situation where you have all odd numbers, but sometimes when you mash the houses and the shapes together, you don't get that. Here we could kind of have 1, 3, 3, 3. For this house, I decided to go 4, 3. Let's see, 4, 3. And then 3 again. And then this was actually, boom, that's like that. So these would come all the way up. Oh, that's 4 again. I did have it right the first time. So yeah, these would come up like that. This one would have a log here as well. Boom, all the way down. And then this one would be 4. The reason why I did that is because I actually wanted a 2x2, or yeah, a 2x2 window right there. But that's you just kind of plan it out and you think, how do I want these shapes to be? Same thing goes for this side. You can split up that like that. You can go 2, and then 2 again, and 3 in the middle. But that's how you start to work out the shapes for your Tudor house. Do the same thing on all sides. Same thing for this upper area as well. So now that we have that all done, all the way around, we've got all the logs kind of in place. Now we can start thinking about texturing these walls. All the red and the orange and the yellow, we can start working on getting a texture. So for the foundation area here, I decided this whole bottom would be considered foundation blocks. For the foundation, I decided to just mix it up with these blocks here. Mossy stone, because I decided I wanted to have a lot of kind of greenery and leaves around. Regular stone brick, mossy stone brick, some cracked stone brick. All of those. You mix those up any way you want, and you can kind of get some good texture and color. Ideally, on the corners, stick with more of the brick blocks on the corners. And then inside here, you can kind of work in more cobblestone, more broken stuff. But if you do the bricks more on the corners, it makes it look a little more solid, a little better foundation. Now for the walls, I decided I wanted to, again, with the gradients, I wanted to go with white concrete and diorite. Now this is where you can start breaking the rules a little bit. So on the foundation, I'm going to kind of let this upper area, this wall texture, bleed down into the foundation a little bit, just to help ease that transition. And same here, I'm going to let this kind of bleed up into our wall texture, so the orange and the red kind of mix together a little bit. On the bottom, I'm going to go primarily diorite down here. We're going to do mainly diorite because this white concrete is a very, very clean block, and we want to give the impression that this is like plaster and it's cracking. So the diorite kind of looks like a cracked version of this. So if you do it like that and you just kind of put them in place where it looks like that's plaster, but then the diorite is just like a broken down version of it. It looks kind of nice. And then down here, not as much of that plaster. This is more broken up and more weathered near the bottom. You can put a little bit in from time to time, maybe like this, just to kind of help it look a little bit more interesting, but try to do not as much down here. At the same time, when you're working on this texture and stuff, you want to be thinking, because you've kind of got the build, you're getting more familiar with it, you're spending more time on it. You want to start thinking about interiors, because I don't knock out any windows in these builds until I get my interiors worked out. Because you can do some things on the outside that maybe look cool, like you could put a window here, and then maybe a window here, and then maybe a window here, and down here. But then your interior is all weird. Then your interior, you have to have a floor down here, and you have to have a floor here and a floor down here. It makes it really difficult. So around this point, I decide where I want my floors to be. So usually we'll go in and we'll take, we'll give it, wow, there's a lot of bats in here. We'll give ourselves about 4 to 5 blocks. In this one, I gave myself 4 blocks to have some headroom for a ceiling. Goodness, bats, holy cow. And then here is the floor for the next level. That kind of helps me decide where my windows will be. I usually have them 1 block up from the floor. So then once you get those floors in, you can start knocking out windows and doors. So in this version, I've already got the interior done. I mean, if you can go through and interior decorate the entirety of the house and figure out where you want your walls to be, that's going to really help you decide where all your windows should be at. But it's one of those things that as long as you have your floors in place, it'll give you a better idea, and you can always kind of fill in and change later. But get that interior done, poke those windows and doors out, and then you start to really feel like a house. At this point, too, I also textured the chimney out. You can decide what you want to do with this. Brick and granite work well together. For this, I decided to just go with like a stone brick and stone, some anvils on the top with campfires, some walls, and then flower pots on top. A couple of stairs to kind of set off the top area, and I think it looks pretty nice. But here, what we want to start doing, obviously, you figure out your windows and interior, and that helps you kind of work out some shapes and stuff. But then we want to start doing trim details and adding some extensions, and this is where the house takes a next evolution. It really, most people, you get to this point, and then you're done. And this is where you end up spending hours and hours and hours, where you try to think, okay, what can I add to this? What details can I add to this? Not only with an easy detail, right, is to add fence gates, right? Add fence gates to the ends, and all of a sudden, now you're really starting to look a little more fancy. That's one thing. But you can also add some extensions to the house. Here we've got this little area, and we can make a spot here that will allow us to go down into the basement, right? So here's the ability to have a little bit of an extension. We just boom, 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 boom. And I'm kind of breaking blocks left and right, but that'll be a little window. You get a little extension there. Now that's another piece of interest. It's not just adding these little blocks and stuff. Add little buildings to the outside. Over on the side here, this is a pretty empty wall. This is a great spot to start working out some sort of overhang, a place to kind of store some things. You can have this kind of hanging out. Same thing over here. We've got a chimney right here, right? This is a great place to have an outdoor smelting area. There's just lots of things. You just walk around, and this stuff takes time. This is where you've got your build, and you actually just sit and stare at it. That's what I do. I'll sit and stare at it for a long, long time, and I'll try something, and then I'll break it down and say, no, that doesn't look good, and I'll try something else. You do this over and over. This is why a build like this will take days for me, because there's a lot of trial and error in this process. But try a lot of things. Stand back, stare at it, and see if you think it looks good. So after several days of doing that, one thing that I picked up on was I thought, you know what? These note blocks actually look like a decorative wood texture almost. So let's use them. So I put these note blocks in here as trim. I put them here as trim. And then you get a lot of you can put trap doors in. That obviously adds detail, like we said. Add shutters, add some fences in there to kind of cover the windows, because all of these walls are too thick. I put all these walls too thick, so you have glass on the inside and a fence on the outside. That kind of helps add some more detail. A shutter here, a shutter here. This area jutting out right here, made out of a totally different texture. That adds warmth. Same thing down here. This is that little building we were working on. Over on this side, we add some windows here, which will allow us to kind of bump the roof up and add some interest there. Here's that little smeltery area we were talking about with an overhang spot to put some more details. A porch on the back, which we didn't have. This is a good area to come out and kind of look over your land and your area. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about standing back and looking at it. You see a lot of different things that you can add into your build. Here, I added some depth by kind of just putting these stairs right here. And this makes this section look just a little bit different and stand out just a little bit more. As you can see, if I did this block by block with you guys, we'd be here. This would be a 5-hour-long video. So that'd be a little too much. But I'm just showing it and showing the process because I want you guys to learn how to do the process more than I want you to learn just how to place each block. If you learn this process and you can get this down and be patient enough to spend time and put love into these builds, you're going to be able to do this on your own better than I will. But even at this point, we're not done. It's easy to say, okay, we're done. It looks great. I'm happy with it. But from here, there's one more step that I like to take. Once I get the house itself to a point to where I feel like it's good, then it's important to start decorating around the outside. So here, something I did in this spot was I added some, it was like a little brick thing to kind of house some flowers or bushes or whatnot. But another thing that I did was on the roof, I added some leaves. And that's always a nice way to kind of add some interest. And a way you can do that is just, find a corner and fill in some leaves there. Something I did on this house to kind of make it look almost like it was mossy was I actually broke out part of the roof in areas. So we'll break out there and then just fill that in, right? If you break it out, you can have some kind of standing out like that. But if you break it out, then it kind of gives you the opportunity to make it look like it's sitting back a little bit. And another thing to help ease this transition is use some vines with some string. And it can be tedious a little bit, but if you use these vines, it helps give that whole kind of mossy, natural growing impression that I think looks really nice. But, the foliage part is a process that you have to kind of learn and you have to just practice with. But here you can put a little bit of a tree, just something. It can go super small. It doesn't have to be crazy big. Just something to kind of add some interest in this spot. Go around and see where can I add some foliage and stuff. Also, flower pots. The flower pots are one of those decorations. I mean, we're limited in Minecraft with decorations. So in my opinion, flower pots are one of those ways that you can really add some interest to your build. I hear these are kind of the same, but just to get the point across, right? You put some flower pots down like that. You could put a barrel there, even some lanterns from time to time. But greenery kind of hanging out, I think, is a really nice way to kind of start to set your build apart. Over here, we've got a flower pot next to the window, like some flower boxes. Do this all the way around, and you start to even add more interest. And then finally, you end up with this. This is it. This is the final product. We put some barrels around. We think about this area. What do I need? I need, in-game, you need storage for logs. Put all your logs right in this area and decorate it. Showcase that this is where all my logs are. Over here, out the back, have a little bit of a garden area and then store all of your kind of flowery stuff out back. Over here, this is a stone cutting area. Put some stone out. Put a stone cutter there. Then you can store all your stone over here, as well as some things that you need to smelt. Over here, this will be your kitchen. Put all your food stuff in here. You've got to think about the purpose. What purposes will you need? And make things to kind of showcase that. So there we have it. We're done. This is the exact replica of the house that I built. And hopefully, if you weren't able to get this exact, which I don't expect you to and I don't want you to, hopefully this has given you some ideas for your own buildings and help you kind of work on a building process that's going to make your stuff stand out even more. Of course, you can go through, you can pause at any point and kind of get an idea block for block how this thing works. But I would love to see what you guys create out of this. What can you make? What can you make? If you make this exact house, I'd love to see it. If you make your own kind of house using this process, I'd be even more interested to see that. I would love something like that. So over on Twitter, send me some pictures over there. You can follow me at B000100 on Twitter and at me some pictures of some builds that you guys have made. Hopefully this inspires you. Hopefully this gives you some good ideas. But that's going to do it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.